Welcome to another Q View. By way of an introduction to the VGLRL Candidates Forum being held here today in Paran. But as usual, with me is Erica.
Hello.
And joining us, a special guest, the hostess of the actual Candidates Forum today, Sally Goldner.
Michael, good to be with you as always.
Good to see you, Sally. It's been a while.
Yeah.
A very active community member is our Sally. But one thing about politics you've got to admit is forums. Now, you probably both saw those. They had like polls, actually, recently in the Herald Sun and the Age. And, of course, one came out and said Labor landslide and the other one came out and said Liberal landslide.
I'm hoping for a Greens landslide. I'm going to cross my fingers and meditate to it.
Well, they're candidates here today, and now that we've got equal, proportional representation in the upper house, they've got more than a chance, haven't they?
Absolutely. I think they're probably looking at, conservatively, 3 metropolitan seats, and possibly, that, if the way it goes, it could be a couple of rural seats as well.
Well, by the by, I actually read today that there are 6 out gay candidates for the Greens in Victoria this year.
Absolutely so. They were introduced actually only a couple of nights ago at the Greens GLBTI policy launch.
Oh, so that's very interesting. I don't know of any out Labor or Liberal ones anymore, do you?
No, well, of course, Mr. Alexander no longer with the Liberal Party and not re-standing for Parliament at all, so no.
It's a bit disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he might have gotten a bit disillusioned there, which is a bit of a disappointing turn of events, really.
Well, that's all we've really got time for, because we've got to show you some highlights from today's GLBT, it's not actually GLBT, it's the Victorian Gay and Lesbian Rights Lobby Candidates Forum down here at Paran.
I'm Sally Goldner, I'm your host and MC for the day, and we're official welcome to the Victorian Gay and Lesbian Rights Lobby Meet the Candidates Forum. Perfect time for our community to give their views and raise their concerns as they relate to LGBTI issues and to communicate them to political leaders. And it's a chance for the parties to present us with their proposals and promises for the community and demonstrate why we should vote for them. Our first candidate to speak will be Barbara Briggs from People Power, and she is the candidate for the upper house seat of Northern Metropolitan Province. Barbara, over to you.
I believe, mainly because of all the gay friends, I guess we all here know people who have been discriminated against because they're gay. My most recent experience is girlfriends who I was the support person for, who spent 2 years trying to get pregnant. Elle had to go to Sydney, the donor was in Melbourne. She had to time that to coincide with her cycle to help her get pregnant. It was only after a year of doing this that she then was allowed, because she was deemed infertile, to continue the process in Melbourne. She did that, and finally, after 2 years of, heartbreaking treatment, she got pregnant. The girls went through the pregnancy together, totally 100%. That child would not exist without both Kathy and Mel. Now the child's born, 9 months old. The father has seen the child twice. He has more rights to the child than Kathy does. Kathy is involved in the day-to-day care of the child just as Mel is. Also, she has to pay $1,000 to register just to pick the child up from school. These kinds of discriminations are putting Kathy in a position where she's already lost one daughter just at the drop of the hat. She could lose another one without any fight, without any say-so. So, of course, I, as the representative for People Power, think that people in the gay community should have absolutely 100% equal rights in every respect. We would like to see gay marriages legalised, but unfortunately that's not a state issue. So the contracts, the registration contracts are the next best thing, and of course it's going to cost a lot of money to create a whole system that is already there for heterosexual couples who can get married. So we're dealing with it the best way we can, and of course we support that, but we'd also be lobbying to make gay marriages legal in a federal sense as well. So,
just a bit of background about myself. I'm a barrister, but I've been involved with various small businesses over the years, including starting the first water taxi service on the river. I've also got a background in local government. I was a councillor and deputy mayor of Melbourne about 5 or 6 years ago, and I suppose that's where I got a taste for what it would be like to be doing this as a day job. And the thing that I was working hardest at, and which was paying me the least at that time when I was being a councillor, and I was also doing the businesses and everything else, and that was what I enjoyed the most and found the most satisfaction out of. So that's my motivation for putting myself up for state parliament. As far as the state government goes, I'm first to concede that neither the Liberal Party or the Labor Party is offering very much. Our position is that there is nothing on the agenda in terms of legislative change, and it's the same with the Labor Party. As far as Paran goes, you've got myself and Tony, who have both expressed our own personal views, which are both similar, supportive of civil unions. So you're looking at a very similar, I suppose, option as far as the major parties goes. But where there's a difference is that Steve Bracks will not give you his personal view on this issue. He will not give it on this and other social issues. Ted Bailey's been asked, what's your personal view? His view is civil unions, no problem. The other difference is that, I'm sure my friend Tony will stand up and tell you about all the great things he's going to do, but don't forget that Labor's been in power, unprecedented power, for 7 years. They've had control of the upper house. They could have done whatever they wanted to do over the last 7 years. 2 minutes to midnight, we get this, that Tony and someone else is allowed to go and talk to your community about the possibility of a civil union registration scheme such as in Tasmania. So I think the gay community is entitled to feel a bit cynical about that release this week.
4.5.
So basically the way I see it, you've got, many of you will be voting for minor parties, but at some point you'll have to decide whether to put Labor or Liberal one above the other. And I'm urging you to, I would rather your first preference, but if you're not voting for me first, look at the records. And I think Labor's had 7 years to achieve what they say they want to achieve now. It hasn't happened, and we have a leader in Ted Bailey who has a view which I think is far more friendly to the community than that offered by Mr. Bracks.
I stood as a candidate in 2004 against the Howard government's changes to the Marriages Act. I guess I was somewhat inspired by hate. In the last couple of years I've become more involved with my party, the Democrats, and part of my duties include keeping the Carter GLBTI network up to date and current. This involves keeping the parliamentary record up to date, and if you have a look through that down the back table down there, you see that we've got pages and pages of what we've done in the Senate for the gay community. and certainly challenged the other parties to provide something similar. I doubt whether they could. Earlier this year, the Senate Select Committee on Mental Health, while that was going on, I arranged a meeting with Senator Lynn Allison, who chaired the committee, and also with GLBTI community leaders. I did this because out of the many hundreds of submissions that were put into the committee, there were none from GLBTI community organisations, except from one from New South Wales. The consequence of this is that without submissions from our community, recommendations couldn't be made. We recognise in school that coming out is hard to do. Same-sex attracted youth are more prone to depression and suicide than most other young people. Anti-bullying programs which deal with homophobia and sex education classes that cover same-sex relationships are what we are calling for. We support Victoria's Bill of Rights and as long as it embraces UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights and the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights. Ensuring that women, regardless of sexuality or relationship status, have the option of using IVF in this state rather than travelling interstate is another thing that we're calling for as well. We support civil rights, we have done for nearly 30 years. On election, I would like to achieve what my federal parliamentarians have been able to achieve at the at the federal level. I think we should congratulate Mexico City, which recently, just in the last couple of days, acknowledged civil unions. So hopefully we can follow in Mexico City's footsteps. Thank you.
My name is Justin Walker, and I represent the Greens. I'm here to speak today about our GLBTI commitment. It's only one of the platforms for which I'm campaigning. As mature adults here, this community wants legal relationship recognition that is equal to that of the heterosexual community. It's very simple, and at the state and at the federal level, both major parties have pushed against this. They've enforced the view that the love of two people is not equal to the love between a man and a woman. We don't need to dwell on our commitment. It's in writing, it's ratified by the party, not just myself. However, we need to think about the more serious effects of the raft of anti-gay politics and hate preaching that has fallen disease in this nation within our major political parties. This has had a greater flow-on effect within our community, on the ones that matter, our youth and our future. Already, suicide rates of youths questioning their sexual or gender identity are far greater than that of the normal population. We're looking at a rate of around 10% of same-sex attracted girls who contemplate or attempt suicide, and around 20% of same-sex attracted boys that do the same. We can tackle this problem by education and extensive support networks. We need to educate our school teachers, principals, youth workers on knowing how and when to provide support, how to help the families of these youths, and on a greater scale, and as political leaders, we need to stop preaching hate politics. We need to deal with and bring into line one of the last bastions of queer discrimination, the private education system. While civil unions seem to be the flavour of the month, we must remember not to follow popular politics. It would be nice to have a family, kids. However, same-sex couples aren't afforded the same rights to adopt children. Women in such relationships have no access to IVF treatment programs, and just getting civil unions through will not tackle these issues. It's just step one. Our policy also covers many other areas of the law that currently discriminate against the community. At least 6 of our candidates in this state election are part of the GLBTI community. We're not here to use our sexuality to get votes. We're part of the Greens because we're allowed to draft this policy and we're not discriminated against. Our goal is to end segregation, to promote integration, tolerance and acceptance. I think back to a time before my own when perhaps some progressive party put forward an anti-slavery policy or perhaps a pro-women's policy. As a politician, I will show true courage and leadership to overcome the intolerance and ignorance that exists in society, to show the state that there is no room for our politicians in our bedrooms.
the opportunity to speak here. I guess the motto of Socialist Alliance is really along the line of, if you tremble with indignation at every injustice, you're a comrade of mine. And that's really what guides a lot of our work. We've been around now for about 5 years, Socialist Alliance, and we've been very, very active in a range of different social movements, because we believe it is actually very critical to start involving the population around particular issues that are affecting our daily lives: oppression, wars, racism, discrimination, to take a stand and actually build up the collective strength that we have. We combine in all our work our extra parliamentary activity with also voting and standing in elections. We think it's important to take both of these tactics on board. Also, Socialist Alliance is very upfront and makes it very clear that we think a lot of the discrimination people face in Australia in lots of different ways are related to our political system and our economic system, which is capitalism. And we do also believe, while we can win some steps forward, this system really, which is actually set up to only benefit a tiny minority, which we can see more and more, especially if you look at it globally, the majority will be the losers. So we make it also very clear that we say, well, we can achieve certain goals in the short term under the neoliberal and capitalist system. In order to really achieve full equality, liberty, we will actually have to look beyond a system that is actually give equal rights to all citizens. Now, going into this particular issue of discrimination for LGBTI people, I think the 13th of August 2004 was a really dark day for Australia. It reminded me a lot of the Tampa incidents. You know, when what we saw happening was the introduction of a new law that was totally unnecessary, the banning of same-sex marriage. Why is it so important to start legislating against same-sex love when people don't have proper houses anymore, when there's so many issues that are affecting the health, the lives of Australians? Why not address these? Why do you have to start focusing on something that is a positive thing when people want to show publicly that they love each other? Now, in our opinion also, all legislation that is discriminatory against LGBTI people has to be scrapped, but we have to go beyond that. Not just scrap any of the discriminatory politics, we actually have to inject more money to undo some of the discrimination that happened. And we need more positive, basically, examples on media and everywhere too. And our policies on the back of the table. Thank you.
I'm going to address a couple of different issues. One about discrimination, another what I might call legitimacy. Discrimination is something that we are on the record in the Labor Party as opposing, and we've got a very good record in eliminating it. It clearly isn't finished. There's work to be done, and we will continue to address that in partnership with the community as we do. We have a very close working relationship with the GLBTI community. It's a very close and positive one, and that's ongoing. Recently, the lobby wrote to the government suggesting that we get together to work on ways in which continuing discrimination in relation to partnership recognition can be overcome, and the government responded positively to that request by appointing Richard Wynne, the Cabinet Secretary, and myself to work with the lobby on the evidence that they are currently putting together about ongoing discrimination as it relates to relationship recognition. The issue of partnership recognition, though, is only one of a great number of important issues facing the community today. We've made great strides in 56 relationships acts that we amended, the way in which we expressly put same-sex partnership into the Equal Opportunity Act so that it was explicitly there and not only by implication, which had been done in the 1990s, because we wanted to make sure that the whole issue of the GLBTI community and relationships was put on a legitimate basis. This is not something that we believe in the Labor Party. It's simply a matter of removing discrimination because it's unfair to discriminate against somebody because of their choice of lifestyle. This is about legitimacy of the GLBTI community. It is about the way in which people are, the way in which people feel, and recognising that and working on the basis that this is a real state of affairs and not simply something that people choose to do as a lifestyle choice. A government that is formed by a coalition of the Liberal and National parties, we now know, will not move on relationship recognition because Ted Baillieu has said he wants to leave it up to John Howard, regardless of his personal opinion. His personal opinion doesn't matter, it's what he'd do. If you look at other things like the gay and lesbian liaison officers in the Victorian Police, I think it's a very good example of legitimacy versus taking the community under suffrage. The Liberals abolished the GLOWs when they were last in government. We replaced them, and every time we've expanded them, the Liberal Party has opposed that in the last 4 years. That's the difference between Liberal and Labor. I urge you to support the government that will continue to represent the community and work in partnership with you.
I just want to express my concern about a relationships register. It seems to me that it's about compromise. Why is it so hard for you to bring in civil unions? ACT can do it, there's moves in Western Australia for it. Why can't the state Labor government just combine with ACT, Western Australia, get a united front, move our rights forward?
The type of legislation that was put forward in the ACT, too closely mirrored marriage, which is a federal constitutional area that states and territories can't go into it. So what we need to do in Victoria is make sure that whatever we do to address the issue doesn't move us out of Victoria's constitutional jurisdiction, but addresses the discrimination. And I think that the way forward with that is to make sure that everybody who is in a relationship, a partner relationship in Victoria, whether they are same-sex or heterosexual partners, have exactly the same rights and obligations. That's what we can do as a Victorian state government, and that's where I believe we're going, that's what I support.
As a gay male, why should I and my partner, as adult tax-paying citizens of this country, have our lifestyles legislated for? Why are we viewed as a minority or a fringe group as such?
Because married heterosexual people are covered by legislation too. There's a Marriage Act and things of that sort, so it's not strictly correct that people in same-sex relationships are the only people who are having their lives legislated. I don't think that's the case, but in general terms, the reason for the need for legislation is because that's the only way to remove discrimination. If discrimination exists because of social structures and other forms of legislation that give people who are in particular relationships a certain status and certain rights and obligations that flow from that status, the only way to effectively redress that is by legislating away that discrimination. That's the reason for making those sorts of advances.
I think it's a good point as well. I don't think that we need legislation to be positively affirming your rights. I think what's required is to go back over the existing legislation and making sure that you are not discriminated against. And I think that's what it's all about. I think if all the laws that were made that exist today were couched in the right terms, there would be no need for any additional legislation to protect the rights of the GLBTI community. Sorry, I'm trying to get that out.
It's a bit of a tricky one because in 2004 a new legislation was introduced to actually discriminate precisely against gay and lesbians, which is the same-sex marriage ban, so it's strange. Anyway, look, I think in lots of ways, laws genuinely, I think, are really about social control, and genuinely a lot of laws are not necessarily working in our favour, but have been there to guarantee particular interests generally of not poor minorities but wealthy minorities. And I think you can look back in history, that is a proven case in point. A lot of the politician mainstream parties do not want to guarantee minority rights for all of us. So for us in that sense, I think until we get to a stage where we don't need many laws at all anymore, because there won't be discrimination against a variety of groups in society. I think we need to push it and fight for our rights by any means necessary, outside Parliament, through Parliament.
Well, I'm here with John, one of the organisers here from the VGLRL Equal Love Committees Candidates Forum down at the Paran Community Centre. How did you think it all went?
I was quite happy with it. I think we had a decent turnout and we had some good questions, some tricky questions, and that's the whole purpose behind this campaign. It's to educate and inform people as best we can about what the political candidates and parties actually stand for, so that they know who they're voting for and they know whether it's in their own interests to vote for a particular way.
Well, thank you very much, John. I think the VGLRL has done another fabulous job here today, and we rely on you always to keep us informed. Thanks very much for being on Bent TV.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.